So now that we've spent some time with the green wood and relating it back to the dry wood a little bit, I want to take that a little step further. I want to point out how you can look at dry wood and hopefully get a lot of the same results that you can get from the green wood as well. Really, the main point that I hope you got out of the green wood, and I hope I didn't bury the lead on this one, is just that your goal is to try and get all those fibers intact. So thinking of wood as a bunch of small fibers that are bound together, fully intact in a piece of wood to make the most flexibility and strength. That's really the end goal of a lot of what goes on with the green wood that I'm trying to get to. Some of it comes down to how the wood is worked. While it's green, it's soft and it's easier to isolate those fibers, but a lot of the concepts are going to carry over into the dry wood. Now, when I'm talking about the dry wood right now, I'm not talking about the seat so much, because the seat in any chair I'm going to make is already going to be of dry wood, and the strength is generally not an issue. That's taken care of in the choice of the material. But I am going to use a piece of pine here to help point out what I'm looking for when I'm talking about a really good piece of wood for making things like legs or stretchers in a chair. So this piece of pine, you can see there's almost no growth rings showing on the surface as far as cathedrals go. There's nowhere where it actually cuts across in hoops except for 1 or 2 spots. That's a good sign for me when I'm looking for a piece of wood. If I turn it to the side here, you can see that the growth rings run all the way down the piece. Now, there can be some deceptive things that you're going to see in a piece of wood that can make this a little bit more confusing. Maybe the tree was twisted and it was sawn, and that can throw some of this out a little bit. But just in general, you can learn to start to look at a piece of wood and consider how straight that fiber is going to be in there. So this one looks pretty good. I'm going to show you this piece of oak now that is very different in that regard. You see a lot of different growth rings coming down and cutting across here, and certainly when you come here, you can see that those growth rings are running this way. So clearly, if I want to saw this piece of wood, I'm going to end up with a lot of short grain in it. Depending on the size I'm going for and the species I'm using, that could or could not be a problem. But my goal is generally to include as many of those long fibers as I can. Here's a good example of what you might end up with if it's not working to your benefit, which now granted this is a piece of elm which is pretty strong, but you can see how the growth rings are swooping outward here, which means you're going to have a lot of short grain here. If that was the bottom of my leg, I might have a very weak position here where I could have a shearing problem with that leg. So I want to avoid that. One of the ways that I avoid that is by splitting the wood. Here is an example of a piece of maple that I bought as a board, and I examined it to see how the growth rings looked on the surface and how the lines might look on the side. And then I brought it home and I split it. I literally took my froe here and the maul and I split it down the middle. And to me, this was the best of possible results because it basically split parallel to the sawn edge. That is not always going to be the case. A lot of times it's not going to go parallel to the sawn edge. And then from then on, I would use the new split edge as my reference. So I'm going to go ahead and split a board, and we're going to see what happens here. Hopefully it will show us the way these fibers are running, and then we could talk about how you could take a board that isn't perfect and still get the material you're going to need for things like legs or stretchers. Well, that one split pretty good, actually. That split right down the middle that way. But here's still the problem we were facing before, and we're still facing it. So here you can see the growth rings are running so that the real best part goes from one corner here down to that corner there. So if I was to split this down the middle this way, we're going to see a very different result in the way it runs. And you can see what I mean. It's starting to follow the fibers and follow those growth rings, and it's running out this way. So I'm going to finish out that split. And now you can see that on one of these faces, the growth rings are following perfectly along there. So now if I come back and I split the other side here, and you can do this by sawing it as well. You don't have to split it to get this result. You can see that when I take this here, putting it halfway across there, because that's going to give me the most direct way of splitting it and know that the forces are actually following the fibers and not just because I'm splitting off a small section. So I'm going to come in here and split this. in here. So now what you're seeing in this wood is that I have a perfectly straight piece of wood now as far as following the fibers, most importantly. So what happened was this tree had some curvature or it had some swelling, and when they sawed it, they didn't pay much attention to that fiber line. But now what I've isolated in here is a piece of wood that is every bit as straight grained as anything I could ever pull out of a log. So hopefully you can start to think about, when you're looking at your selection of your logs or your boards now, how you might get that same result. So now, if I did want to make stretchers out of this, for instance, I could come in and treat this just like it was a split piece of wood. And know that I can get these fully strong pieces of wood out of it. And I can do so either by splitting it if I wanted to, or by sawing it. And hopefully that gives you the idea about how any of these materials, be they straight from a log or straight from the lumber yard, can still be useful for chairs. One more concept I want to highlight when we're talking about using boards and green wood and getting the same benefits from either is about grain direction and tool use. Because what happens with a normal piece of wood, like this one, where I've drawn where the growth rings go on this, so you can see there's a very distinct difference between the fiber line and the surfaces of the board. In this instance, as you may have become familiar, if we were using a hand plane on this, we would have to go one direction on one face and the other direction on the other face. It isn't interchangeable, and if you go the wrong direction, you're going to get a lot of tear out because you get a splitting action that happens. And one of the benefits of splitting wood is that's simply not the case. You can go either direction on any face because you're following the fibers already. The only end grain that's actually exposed on this entire piece is at the actual ends here, where on a piece here, you see end grain exposed everywhere that you see a growth ring. So when I'm using tools, be it in turning or in shaving or shaping, it's really handy for me to be able to cut the same direction on any face, knowing that the only rule I have to obey is the thick to thin rule. So as I go around this piece of wood, I can just cut knowing full well that I'm not going to find myself having a splitting action as I go, regardless of which face I'm on. So if this was on the lathe, or if I'm shaving it with a spoke shave, I know exactly what to do. I always go from the thick portion to the thin portion of my shape, and I'm always going to get clean results. That really makes hand tools incredibly effective, and when you're turning on the lathe, it's always going to give you the very best surface quality off of the tools. So I've gathered my materials here for the legs and the seat of this project, and what I want to do basically is get my legs to the point where they're rough turned like this, so that all my parts are ready to be dried, either have the whole thing dried like you can do with some of the stretchers, or specifically dried like you will with the tenons on the legs. Now if I was doing this from green wood, I would probably rough turn them, maybe even a little larger than this in the beginning, because I want to give it a chance to shrink and distort if it's going to. I don't like to do that, go straight from green to the final turnings, because if you do that, the distortion is really going to throw off your shapes. And I very distinctly like my shapes to be a certain way, so I would let everything air dry myself. We're going to specifically dry the tenons on the legs so that they're super dried. Even with the kiln dried wood, you can still bring it down some in the moisture content, and that way when you assemble it, you will get a differential between the seat and the tenon, and that is going to make it so that you can experience some of that locking we like when the tenon swells back up after drawing the moisture off of that seat. So what I've got here is my legs, and as I showed you before, I had a nice split here on this leg piece, so I'm just going to saw parallel to that to get my two rear legs. But when I turn it over here, I can look, when I look at the fiber line, I notice that it does not run perfectly parallel to these two surfaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it in my lathe in such a way, so my center is here and here, and that way I'll be cutting off these portions you see that I've defined with the magic marker. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to make my fat center part perfectly large for what I need, but it's going to redirect these two ends which taper anyway. That's the good news, is if you look at any of the legs or any of the parts, they all taper at the end. So by moving this just a little bit in the material, you don't actually lose anything because the center part doesn't move very much, even though the ends move quite a bit. That is something I'm going to have to do with just about all of these. So here you see this one followed really nicely as well. This little stretcher, I'm going to have to mount it, and you'll see when I mount it how I go about doing that. Same thing here, same issue, but here I also, when I split this board, got a very undesirable result, which is that it ran at quite an angle down the board. That's okay though. That just becomes my new reference face, and when I want my stretcher out of it, I simply use that as the reference for measuring. And again, once I cross-cut this and mount it in the lathe, you will never know that this piece of wood wasn't split from a log.